Chapter 4. God's design, equal and different. He created them male and female and blessed them. And when they were created, he called them man. Genesis 5:2. Men and women are equal. What we've learned about the purpose and creation of humanity in the last chapter is the basis for their equality. Man was created in the image of God. Man has spirit. Man has a spirit. Male and female are both man. The spirit man resides within both male and female. Both male and female have different spiritual access to God and are responsible to Him. Both male and female were given dominion over the earth. Regardless of what culture and society may say, the highest worth and dignity were given to the female by God in creation. She was created equal with the man and was given the task, along with the male, of having dominion over the earth and fulfilling God's purpose in both the physical and spiritual realms. Purpose, nature, and design. Purpose determines design, and design determines needs. God created man and placed the man in the male and the female. The male was created for a specific purpose, and the female was created for a specific purpose. The purpose of each are related to their overall purpose, to have a relationship of love with God and to have dominion over the earth. Again, it is the manufacturer who determines the designs of a product, and it is the manufacturer who establishes the difference in his products. Therefore, God designed the male and the female in the forms He determined would best fulfill their purpose. Males and females are not ultimately different in nature because society has imposed its standards on them. They are not different because of environment. They are not different because of family upbringing or culture. Men's opinions throughout history did not make males and females different. Males and females are different because of their design and creation. What society and culture have done is to take the intrinsic differences between male and female, distort them, and use them to devalue women. Over the years, it's been proven that our cultural hang-ups about women were wrong. Women have been treated terribly throughout history. Recently, however, when they started to take on new roles, many men discovered to their amazement that women are valuable and significant contributors in the world. However, this was God's purpose even before the male and female were made. God made woman with worthy, dignity, purpose, and skill. He planned her design from the beginning. Males and females are different because of their purpose and design. God's purpose stands. If you try to change the design of something, you're looking for trouble. For example, everything that is in your car was put there by the manufacturer, and he knows why he put it there. You can't decide, I want the battery in the trunk. You have the authority to move the battery because it is your car. You can take the battery out of the engine and put it in the trunk. However, then try to start your car. It won't work. Over the years, we've been trying to change the design of people, and that won't work either. We need to understand God's purpose. When Jesus first began to speak with the Samaritan woman at the well, she was wary of him. She spoke to him only in the context of the prejudice between the Samaritans and the Jews that prevailed at the time. You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? John 4:9. He answered her, if you only knew who you were speaking with. The woman had a problem, and it was not that she was being rude. She thought that since Jesus was a Jew and she was a Samaritan woman, he wouldn't speak with her. She didn't know who he really was. He said, if you only knew who was talking to you, everything would be all right. However, I know you don't know, so go ahead and talk foolishly for a few minutes. He allowed her to be foolish. Then he said, let me tell you who I am. And he began to reveal to her the deep secrets of her heart. After that, she changed the way she thought about him. She said, you're not just a Jew, you're a prophet. She went into the town and said, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. John 4:29. She didn't say, come see a Jew, but come see a man. See John 4:5-30. People will change their perspective toward you when they know why you're here, when they begin to understand your purpose. I believe that half of the things we hate about others are qualities that can actually benefit us. However, we usually hate what we don't understand. Over the last 23 years that I have been walking with the Lord, I have concluded that when a person doesn't like someone else, the person needs grace because he lacks understanding. He or she is merely in a present state of ignorance. People have hatred, bitterness, and envy toward one another because they are ignorant of God's purpose. This is what has happened between men and women. When I was in college, I read various psychologists' theories on human nature. Each one seemed to believe that he had a handle on the nature of mankind. Yet their books are now becoming obsolete because psychology has made new discoveries and that these psychologists didn't know about when they wrote their books. No one knows the product like the one who made it. God says, my purpose will stand, Isaiah 46:10. We're just starting to catch up with what God already knows about human nature because he designed it. Everything is the way it is because of its purpose. The purpose is what we need to discover because it explains the design. The dominion mandate. Male and females were designed to exercise dominion over the earth. In the last chapter, we learned that God created them male and female and blessed them. And when they were created, he called them man. Genesis 5:2. When God created the male and the female, he told them, in effect, you are manifested in two different bodies with two different natures, but both of you are man. He also blessed them, affirming them in their similarities and differences. Therefore, the man is the spirit that lives inside both male and female. That spirit man is the one who relates to God and who has dominion over the earth. I'm going to repeat that. That spirit man is the one who relates to God and who has dominion over the earth. God made the products to fulfill their purpose. The female and the male both have dominion, yet they each execute this overall purpose in a different manner. Their basic assignment is the same, but the execution of it is different. Because men and women have different specific purposes, different designs, and different physical bodies, their authority is manifested and carried out in different ways. In the chapters that follow, we will explore the uniqueness of the woman as well as the specific purposes of female and males that enable them to fulfill their dominion assignment. Their basic assignments is the same, but the execution of it is different. Again, the basis of the equality of men and women is in fact that they were both created in God's image, and that man, the spirit, lives within both male and female. The differences are only functional. That is, the different ways in which the assignment is carried out does not affect their equality. It only reflects their different purposes, designs, and needs. I am convinced that there can be no dominion unless this original design is intact. It is crucial for us to understand the principles that the way you are is because of why you are. The way a male is and the way a female is are directly related to why they exist. They are different because of what they are called to do. Therefore, when we look at this beautiful, fascinating, and complex creature called man, who is manifested as both male and female, we must understand that the purpose of men and women determine their individual natures, designs, and needs. This fact explains why the two are so similar and yet so different. Let us now look at these differences more closely to see their implications. Equal and different. We must continually keep in mind that God created men and women equal, and He created them different. When Adam first saw the woman, he said something that women have forgotten and men don't want to remember. God made the woman from the man's rib or side, and then He presented her to man. When Adam saw the woman, I believe that he struck the most powerful blow for equality when he said, "This is now bone of my bone." Genesis 2:23. In other words, he was saying this person is exactly like me in structure. Second, he said, "This is now flesh of my flesh." V23. She is exactly like me in all her physical qualities and in all of her emotional and psychological ability. Yet Adam saw two differences. We are the same, we are equal, he said, but there are differences. Adam said something women have forgotten and men don't want to remember. Yet Adam saw two differences. We are the same, we are equal, he said, but there are differences. You have a womb and you are a receiver. The major differences between a man and a woman is that the woman has a womb and can bear children. Again, you could say that the woman is a wombed man or wombed man. The womb gives the woman a different component in the human makeup. Therefore, God put different circuits into the wombed man. In order to operate this component, the woman is the same as the man. She's just like the man. However, her womb requires that her circuits function a little differently in order to allow the womb to fulfill its purpose. Another difference between a man and a woman is that the woman is designed primarily as a receiver and the man is designed primarily as a giver. This, of course, does not imply that a woman does not give. On the contrary, her nature is to give and keep on giving. What this means is that the woman was taken out of the man at creation, and that she was designed to receive his love. It means that she was made to be a receiver. In this role, she has many qualities that complement the man, which we call differences. Different does not mean inferior or superior. Even though we all know that differences between men and women exist, most of us have problems with this fact because we believe that being different means being inferior or superior to others, especially inferior. Don't confuse being different with being lesser. Different does not imply inferior or superiority. Different simply means different. A woman is not less than a man because she is a woman, and a man is not more than a woman because he is a man. They are both man, but they are different. Their differences are necessary because of their purposes. We need to teach this truth to our children when they are young. We need to say, son, your sister is different, not because she's less or because she's more. She's different because of her purpose, and so are you. Some women say, I am superior to a man because I have the ability to bear children. Yet, it takes two to conceive a child. Everyone has a role. Everyone is equal but different. All of us have a fingerprint that no one before us ever had, and no one after us will ever have. This distinction is an indication of how God created all of us to be different, and how He wants us to remain distinct even in our unity with others. It's sad when a person tries to become like somebody else. If you try to be like somebody else, you are preventing yourself from being who you were created to be. You shouldn't try to be like anyone else, because if you try to be like somebody else, you are missing God's best for you. On television, I saw a picture of a little child with a caption that said, missing. The Lord spoke to me and said, I have many children who are missing. Some of you may be missing. You are present in the world, but missing in regard to fulfilling the specific purposes for which you were created. You are behaving like someone else instead of yourself. God is saying to you, I want you to stop trying to be like someone else and be who you are. God has special plans for you. I'm going to repeat that. God made you for a special purpose. God is saying to you, I want you to stop trying to be like someone else and be who you are. God has a special plan for you. God made you for a special purpose. God has special plans for you. Yes, you. If you will be who He created you to be, He has given you your personality and gifts for a specific reason. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Ephesians 2:10. Paul said, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. 1 Corinthians 11:1. In other words, he was saying, when I look like Christ, imitate me. The only thing we are to imitate in people is the life of Christ. Otherwise, we're not to try to imitate others. God made you different because of the purpose He had in mind for you. The same thing is true for everyone else. We run into trouble when we try to change people into what we are. This often happens when people get married. After the honeymoon, people start to try to make their spouses think and behave as they do. The greatest problem in marriage is when one party tries to make the other party over. That person is already made. People spend years trying to change their mates, but God made males and females different because of what they were designed to do. That means your wife is the way she is because of why she is. Your husband is the way he is because of why he is. If you try to make a female a male or try to make a male a female, you're trying to do the impossible. No one can alter God's purposes. We can try to change God's purpose, but they will always remain the same. Remember that God said, before my purpose could be changed, I would have to stop being God. If you are going to deal with a female, you must find out what God wanted when He made females. Otherwise, you're going to be handling something you don't understand. The same thing applies for the male. Thus, everything is the way it is because of its purpose. We need to see our differences as complementary. We need to celebrate our uniqueness as females and males, as well as the individuality God has placed within each person. The fall of man. Men and women were created, therefore, with perfectly complementary designs. When did we start departing from God's original purpose? The 3rd chapter of Genesis explains the source of the conflict and strife between men and women. In chapter 2, we read that God instructed the man Adam that he could eat from any tree in the garden except the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If he did, he would die. Genesis 2:17. When Eve was created, Adam passed this instruction along to her. The events that followed turned men and women away from God's perfect design. The devil, in the form of a serpent, tempted Eve to eat from the tree, saying that if she did, she would not die, but would be like God, knowing good and evil. Genesis 3:5. Eve succumbed to the temptation. Adam agreed, and they both ate of the fruit of the tree. By an act of their wills, Adam and Eve rejected God's plan and pursued their own desires. They had been designed to live in God's purposes and under His loving rule. Yet they wanted a purpose for which they were not created. They thought that they could be like God Himself. They weren't satisfied with their position and roles, yet their rejection of God's purposes only brought them heartache, because they were not meant to live independently from God and the purposes for which He had created them. The scripture describes their predicament. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools. Romans 1:22. Men and women lost their perfectly balanced relationship. Results of the fall. The first result of the fall was that humanity's fellowship with God was broken. Remember that man was created to receive God's love, yet Adam and Eve sinned and rebellion separated them from God. God still loved them, but they no longer had the same open channel to God with which to receive His love. Second, Adam and Eve experienced death just as God had said they would. They did not immediately experience physical death, yet the remarkable spirit that God had placed within them, the spirit that distinguished them as made in His image, suffered a death. While they still retained elements of their creation in God's image, they no longer perfectly reflected the nature and character of their Creator. They also were destined to die physically at some point. Third, Adam and Eve suffered the loss of their perfectly balanced relationship. Men and women lost their perfectly balanced relationship. To the woman, God said, I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing. With pain, you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. To Adam, He said, because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat of it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you were, from For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Genesis 3:16. Was the woman cursed? We have learned that when purpose is unknown or is rejected, abuse is inevitable. The devaluing of women by men is not a natural consequence of God's original design. Some people claim that this is so, and they use it as a justification for putting women down. Rather, it came about as a result of humanity's rebellion against God and rejection of His purpose. Man and woman cannot function in true harmony and effectiveness outside of God's purpose. After Adam and Eve rebelled, God made some specific statements to the woman. I want to strongly emphasize that these statements were not curses. I was brought up to believe that God cursed Eve. The teaching of my Sunday school classes insinuated that this is what God did. However, this was not the case. God was telling Eve the natural consequences of rejecting His purpose. The Bible does not say that God cursed the man or woman. God said, "Cursed is the ground." Genesis 3:17. In other words, He said to Adam, "It is the earth that is really going to feel the impact of your disobedience. Because of this, you will have to struggle to survive in it." Moreover, He did not curse the woman by making her a childbearer. He didn't say, just for that, now you're going to have children and it's going to hurt. Adam and Eve were always meant to have children. Eve had the ability to bear children so that humanity could reproduce after its kind. That ability was established before sin came into the picture. So bearing children is not a curse. Rather, when you bear a child, you are fulfilling part of God's purpose for humanity. However, God told Eve that because of sin, she was now going to experience pain in childbearing. If there hadn't been a fall, a woman could have had as many children as she wanted without any pain. God made it clear that pain, not the ability to have the child, was the product of the fall. Many women today consider childbearing and child rearing to be a burden because they do not receive enough support in this from their husbands. Moreover, when a woman is a single parent, the burden becomes even greater. The scripture says in Genesis 1:28, God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful." Emphasis added. Both female and male were supposed to be fruitful. That meant that any babies Eve would bear would belong to both of them. God said to them, in effect, don't just concern yourselves with having dominion over the earth together. You have to bring up the children together too. Part of the result of the fall may be that too much of this responsibility has fallen to the women, while the man has been preoccupied with taking dominion. Sometimes women also can be more concerned with involvement in the world than raising their children. Domination and desire instead of dominion. God not only told the woman that her pain in childbearing would be increased, but He also said your desire will be for your husband and he will rule over you. Genesis 3:16. This is a change from their former relationship. This statement emphasizes the fact that the male and female were originally created to rule together. They were designed to function together equally. God had said to them, "Fill the earth and subdue it." Genesis 1:28. Both of them were supposed to be rulers, and that is still His plan. After the fall, both the man and woman would still rule, but their relationship would become distorted. First, God said to Eve that because of sin, your desire shall be for your husband. V16. Once a woman gets married, she has a desire, a longing for her husband. Sometimes this desire can become controlling. Most of the time, this desire is hidden, but it's there. God also told Eve that the man developed an attitude of rulership over her. He would feel as if he had to dominate her. This was not part of God's plan. However, because of sin, the man's twisted perception of life would cause him to want to dominate the woman. And because of sin, the woman would continually desire to do anything to keep him. Most women would not like to admit that they have this desire. Many marriage counselors can confirm that it exists. They have counseled women who are being abused by men, and they have wondered how these women take it. For example, a man comes home in the middle of the night and beats his wife half dead. He wets the bed clothes because he's been drinking and cannot control his bladder. He goes out for 3 nights in a row, high as a kite, and then comes back home and demands to be fed. His wife allows him to treat her in this manner. She cooks his meals, washes his clothes, and has the bedspread cleaned. Why does she do this? It is this desire. Women have a tremendous ability to allow things. This isn't entirely a result of the fall. Rather, it is actually a reflection of their creation in God's image. The Bible says that God is long-suffering. This means that He allows things for a long time. He is patient with people, waiting for them to change their behavior. He permits things to go on for a long time, but He's only long-suffering. He is not forever suffering. Women have a tremendous ability to allow things. There comes a time when God stops and says, "That's it," and that's when judgment comes. Now, some women get to the point where the desire wears a bit thin. There comes a time when a woman also says, "That's it, brother. After 5 years of this foolishness, that's it. Get your act together or judgment is coming down Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. While many women have a limit to their tolerance of abusive behavior, a woman's tendency is still this longing for her husband, this desire to please him at all costs. At the same time, the man tends to feel as if he has the right to lord it over her. He will rule over you, Genesis 3:16. Again, this was not God's plan in creation. God never said that the man in the male was to dominate the man in the female. He said that man as male and female was to dominate the earth. The fall, however, caused the man to have a misplaced and distorted understanding of dominion, so that now the man wants to dominate the woman. Humanity's Redeemer. Is humanity doomed? Humanity's Redeemer. Is humanity doomed to live in the effects of the fall? Has God's purpose been lost forever? No. His purpose has never changed. His original design still stands. At the very hour of humanity's rejection of God's purpose, God promised a Redeemer who would save men and women from their fallen state and all its ramifications. Genesis 3:15. The Redeemer would restore the relationship and partnership of males and females. Jesus Christ is the Redeemer, and because of Him, men and women can return to God's original design for them. Purpose, peace, and potential can return to humanity. Is God's purpose for women and men lost forever? The last 2 chapters have been an overview of God's purpose for women and men in creation and what happened to derail that purpose. The chapters that follow will help women and men apply these purposes in practical ways. They will present the woman purposes and design and how she relates to the male and his purpose and design. A return to God's plan, however, means a return to God Himself. It means coming back to God through the Redeemer, yielding your life to Him and asking Him to fill you with His Holy Spirit so that you will be able to live in His original plan for you. When you do this, God will do amazing things. He will cause the human spirit within you which is dead as a result of the fall, to come alive again, so that you will be able to reflect his character and his ways. As you return to God and continually yield your spirit to God's spirit, you will be able to fulfill the purpose for which you were created. Principles for understanding the purpose and the power of woman. God's design, equal and different principles. Number 1, women and men were created equal and different. Number 2, everything was designed by God to fulfill its purpose. Number 3, females and males are different because of their design. Number 4, different does not mean inferior or superior. Number 5, the purposes of women and men determine their individual nature and needs. Number 6, the female and male were both given dominion over the earth, yet they each execute this purpose according to their unique purposes and designs. Number 7, to try to be someone other than what you were created to be is to miss God's best for you. Number 8, when we try to change God's purpose for ourselves or others, we are attempting the impossible, for God's purposes cannot be altered. Number 9, Adam and Eve rejected God's purposes by an act of their wills. Number 10, because of the fall, man experienced broken fellowship with God, spiritually and physical death, and the loss of the perfectly balanced relationship between males and females. God did not curse the female or the male as a result of the fall. He cursed the earth. Adam and Eve experienced the natural consequences of rejecting God and his purposes. Number 12, childbearing is not a curse. I'm going to repeat that. Number 12, childbearing is not a curse. Number 13, as a result of the fall, the woman has a desire to please her husband, and the man has a desire to dominate her. I'm going to repeat that. Number 13, as a result of the fall, the woman has a desire to please her husband, and the man has a desire to dominate her. Number 14, Jesus Christ, the Redeemer, saved humanity from its fallen state and restored the relationship and partnership between males and females. Okay, so that is it for Chapter 4, God's Design, Equal and Different, in Understanding the Purpose and Power of Women. The Woman as She Was Meant to Be by Myles Munroe. I'll see you in the next chapter, Chapter 5, The Uniqueness of Woman. Narrated by Rakiya. Thank you for listening to Get Married Whole Media. See you in the next chapter.